We'll start again. We are doing the road less traveled, Neuro Pathways, and the talks are going to be interactive. So your brain is always making new roads and new pathways. And so what we want to look at is, and ask the question is, are you going in the right direction? Do you know if the pathways, the habits, the ways of interacting that you subconsciously do are those things that you're happy with or unhappy with? And we're going to go through how to actually help you repattern them, the different things that you can do for that, but objectively or try to look at these different aspects. Okay, so have we ever in our life driven to work the same way repeatedly to the point where you don't even think about it anymore? Put up your hand. Yeah. So everybody has, right? That's a repeated neural pathway. That's literally what we're talking about, is that habit that we do it so often that we don't even have to think about it because we just know how it's going to be. Have we ever emotionally reacted to something without thinking before? Yep, that's a neural pathway as well. So that's a pattern that we've dealt with. These are the things that we're looking at. And do we have any habits that we would like to change? Those are neural pathways. So we're putting up hands and we're going, okay, so these are the things that actually apply to our lives. These are the things that actually happen that we want to look at. So what I want us to talk about is, how are these neural pathways happening? What's going on with them? What kind of changes are we actually seeing? And what we need to understand is the pathway is, if you use it, nerves that wire together will actually fire together. The ones that fire together will wire together, is another way of saying it. So an easy way to understand this is let's think about how much product, let's say how many pounds of potatoes, just for fun, could we move if we have a horse trail and we're going up a mountain? And the only thing you can put on that horse trail is a horse. We're not going to move a lot of product, right? Whatever product that horse could carry. So let's say 100 pounds. What if we change that horse trail into a dirt road? Now we can carry a truckload of stuff. What if we turn that dirt road into a paved road? Now we can move semis worth of stuff, right? What I'm showing you is that these pathways are literally repetition pathways. The more you do it, the easier it happens. And basically what happens is the action potential, or how quickly it'll fire, becomes easier each time you use it. So it takes less energy to do it. So how this applies is, you can look at this in sport. You can look at this in anything that you have ever learned how to do. So what's an example of, most people have learned how to walk sometime in their life, and they've repeated it so many times that they don't have to think about picking up their leg and walking. It just happens. But if you've ever had damage to yourself before and you have to relearn how to walk, you're literally having to repattern those pathways again. That's what we're talking about. The more that you do it, the easier you learn it. So let's take, for example, a sport. So you may know that I like playing tennis. And when I was learning to play tennis, it was very awkward to swing and not know what to, I was like, well, I don't know what to do. What movement do I need to do? And this is how practice comes into play, is that you're actually repatterning that pathway to happen so that the synchrony will happen over and over and over again. So for me, the forehand, drop the wrist, drop down, come forward, lift leg, and then pull through. That was all stuff that I had to learn how to do repeatedly to get the result of hitting the ball over the net high and dropping in the court. But that's a sporting analogy. What if it's something where we want to react a certain way to an emotion, or to how somebody says something to us? Do we just blow up, or do we work through it in our mind and pattern ourselves? And then do we role play with a friend or family member so that we can actually practice saying what we want to say? Or is it just random chance? So you can look at these things and you can understand that if you have an emotional reaction that you don't like, you can literally role play with a teddy bear if you don't have somebody to talk to, and it will literally help you. Or you can play the AI game and have it say something to you and then role play back to it the words that you want to say. So, and if you repeat that enough times, that will become your new way of reacting to that statement. So, an example that I learned from a mentor is when somebody says something to me and I don't know if it's good or bad, I go, is that good? Because I don't know what it means to that person. I don't assume that it means anything. Is that something you're happy with? Is that good? It's an open-ended question to say, are they happy or unhappy with it? So help them lead towards the outcome they want to have. Does that make sense? And that was something that I had to role play in my head a couple times so that every time that question, any question would come to me, I would say that instead of, oh, that's bad or oh, that's good. That's judgment. Now I'm just saying, is that something you're happy with? Is that something you like? Is that good? So let's do a little interactive drill. Let's cross our arms. Okay. Now, I want you to cross your arms the other way. Which way feels normal? The first way, right? Why is that? The brain likes pattern. The brain likes repetition. The brain also likes familiarity. So it's not that either way is right or wrong. It's the way you've done it so many times that you like the familiarity. For me, I like this. This way, this feels weird. And for everybody, it's the same thing. That's a neural pattern. So when we look at these things and like, I just don't like how this is happening. I don't like how I feel. That's a unfamiliar feeling for you. You're actually growing with that unfamiliarity. So if you want to change yourself, you have to become accustomed to that unfamiliar feeling. If you want familiarity, you're going to get the exact same result that you've already had to get there. So, what are the familiar loops that we're living in? And these can be physical loops, these can be emotional loops. So, what is the pattern that we're living in? Are we living in anxiety loops? Do we have positive or negative self talk? Are there pain patterns? Are there stress patterns? Are there addiction patterns? Are there inflammation patterns? So, these are all habits that we're not even aware of. When we run the EEG and actually scan your brain, I'm just looking at the patterns that you've learned. That's what I'm actually seeing. I'm seeing what are your brain habits and what patterns have you learned? Have you learned that, and we'll commonly see this in females, where the back of the brain is really, really fast and the front of the brain is really, really fast. So what does that show up as? Racing thoughts and obsession. So that's a pattern that people learn. And then we can see it. And then when I see that, I know there's been trauma because that's a protective pattern. The same thing when I look at the brain and I see, oh, you have a depression or decrease of a certain frequency in the top and the back, the alpha one, that's PTSD. That's a pattern of protection. So I don't have to remember what's going on. Or I've stayed in, and this one's really crazy to me because this is the one that is interesting. If I make my brain think really, 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 really hard so I can figure out things all the time, I can actually pattern myself so I have less slow brain waves in the front and more fast. And that can make me prone to pain and fatigue and sleep issues. That's the fibromyalgia pattern. So you look at these things, you go, okay, so what's really going on is that you're seeing patterns of trauma or patterns that people have learned. And a lot of it is subconscious. They'll just say, I don't want to ever feel this way again, so I'm going to control something. I'm going to control how I think. I'm going to control the environment. So if I'm going to control the environment, the OCD pattern will show up. And the frontal lobe will look at it, and the brain waves in the frontal lobe will be very high and fast. And that's I can't control internal, so now I try to control external. Does it make sense? All right. So what patterns or ways do we chronically see ourselves? So I'm going to list some things, and then when we go through this, you can all share with a friend. So do we have worry patterns? I do. Do we have overwhelm patterns? Do we have distraction patterns? Oh, I got that. Do we have fear patterns? Do we have anger patterns? Do we have addiction of achievement patterns? Do we have avoidance patterns? Do we have abandonment patterns? Like, these are all things. And what will happen is that we have them, and then we do them so much that we become so accustomed to them that we think that's our personality. But it isn't. It's just a pattern that we've learned. So share with a friend one or two that you think you have. All right. So what we're going to look at now is we're going to look at some more of these neural patterns, and we're just going to try it ourselves. So what I want us to do is take one hand, right hand, go to the left knee, and I want you to tap the knee and the hand at the same time. We're doing pretty good, right? Now we're going to try something different. We got to tap the other foot and the leg at the same time. So what you're actually doing right there is neuroplasticity. You're actually causing yourself to do something that is not a common occurrence for you. You're not commonly walking down the street going like this. The audience says they might be. So what I want us to understand is the brain grows, or the patterns are made by challenge. That means something new. And this is the key that I've noticed: novelty. So the newer the situation is, the more likely you are to remember it. And the newest way to have novelty is to have a high emotional charge with whatever's going on. So the more emotionally charged you are when you're making that pattern or that habit, the more likely you are to remember it and replay it. To the point where, and I always bring this up, do you remember exactly where you were when you saw one of the Twin Towers get hit? That was an emotionally charged pattern. That was literally a memory that was seared into your brain because of how emotionally charging it was. How about the same time 3 days before? I have no clue where I was. And that's because there is no emotionally charged. The limbic, or the emotional center, is not triggered during that time. So if we want to make it easy for us to remember what's going on, we want to make it hard. That's a habit. We're doing a new thing. But we also want to make it novel. So we want to make it a new way of doing it. So this is how really good teachers work, is they make it novel. So they'll use different colors or games, or they'll have different interactions, because that's going to make you learn if it's a novel thing. If it's a fun thing to do, you're going to be more prone to learning that XYZ, whatever it is. If it's boring, you're like, I don't want to be here. This is no good. I'm done. And we've all been there, or we've all seen the person at the back of the class falling asleep, or been the person in the back of the class falling asleep. So the challenge is to go, what can I do to make it something I want to do? Like, what's the outcome that I want to achieve? Make it novel, so new, and try to emotionally charge it. And so the more you charge it, the more you'll actually hardwire that limbic emotion in there, and then it stays. Whenever you have a major negative or positive event in your life, you'll remember it. And it literally just wires in really, really quickly. So one of the tricks that they taught us in school was to have either graphic or sexually reminding mnemonics to remember things that were really boring. So if you had to remember all the cranial nerves, all 12 of them, if you had a mnemonic, words and each letter represented something, it would go forward. I'll give you a non-graphic one because I want to be PG on how we remember the bones in the foot. And it was Calgary Transit never comes late in May. So Calgary was calcaneus, transit is talus, never, navicular, late, lunate, in intermediate, medial, and lateral cuneiform. So that's how we remembered all the bones in the foot, was just by that mnemonic. And so it was something that was, when he said it to me, I was like, that's weird. And then it stuck with me. And so that's how you can remember things, is if you have it. Now, if it's not, if you're like, well, I need it to be derogatory, then you have your own derogatory statement that you say and you'll remember. But it's a way to remember things, and it's a way to make new patterns that make it easy for you. Now, how does this apply to what we do in the office? So if we're making new neural patterns, and that's what our goal is to do here, how are we doing that for the body? Well, when we do neurofeedback, the brain will actually get feedback on itself. So when you're doing neurofeedback, the brain is actually becoming aware of its firing patterns. Before that, it's actually not aware that the patterns it's doing are what's causing the change. So you actually make the brain aware that when it fires this way, it will be rewarded. So say we wanted the front of your brain to go faster in a certain frequency. Then we can reinforce that with different stimuli. So say we wanted the brain to go faster with a high alpha or alpha frequency, then what we can do is when it does what's right, we can reinforce it with a mild dopamine rush. So how does that happen? You remember those little stickers that we put on you? We put them on you, and then when you do what's right, you'll hear the little click on the machine turn on, and then the electrical signal will go to the little point, and then it will make your body get a little dopamine rush at a specific point in your brain. So that's how the neurofeedback for the kinesthetic feeling actually causes change. So what about, and that's called a pull. That's a positive reinforcement. We can also, though, with the neurofeedback, give you different stimuli that will help your brain do what's right. So if your brain is going too slow and we want it to go fast, then what we can do is we can have the glasses flicker, and the frequency they flicker at will actually force the brain to change to the right frequency. All of the devices that we use on top of the neurofeedback, besides the sound, is called neuroentrainment. So what it actually does is it basically hypnotizes the brain to do the right thing. So what it will do is the glasses will flicker, and we have them flicker if we want them to do the fast frequency. When it goes slow, they turn on and they'll go to the fast frequency, which is 11 hertz, which then through the visual cortex will cause the brain to start patterning that right frequency. So if you have another way to understand this, if you know somebody who has ever experiences seizures, what is the worst thing for them to be in? A light, one of those strobe lights or lights that is at the specific frequency that will induce the seizure. And for a lot of them, it can be really, really high or really low. For a specific seizure, we'll see it usually at like 4 hertz or up higher. So we can use the same thing that can induce the seizure to actually force the brain to do the right actions. So that's why the frequency of the lights flickering will actually force the brain to go into the right pattern. And remember, if we want it to be memorized, we want to do the repetition, so the right frequency. We want it to be new, so a new experience. Well, glasses flickering is a new experience for most people. And then we want to have emotion. So if you it's harder when we're doing neuro, but if you visualize or experience a specific emotion, like a happy emotion when you're doing it, it will actually make you get better. So I've had some patients that when they want to do better, this is actually what my dad did. He prays and his numbers go right into normal. So you can actually use your body doing the right aspects and get reinforced. So what I've just explained is the visual and the kinesthetic. You can also, though, be reinforced with auditory, the music. Now, the music can be a reward, and it's basically when the brain does what's right, it's rewarded, and the brain craves stimuli. And if you don't believe me, look at how many people can get addicted to TikTok and just going like this. That's that stimuli craving. That's that dopamine rush every 4 to 5 seconds that's driving people. There's actually huge neuroscience behind how they make those the screen time work. The more you move, the more addiction you can get to it. So the brain is craving that stimulus. That's just how we're wired. And what will happen is if we can get it to get a reward, when it produces the right frequency, it gets the reward of the music, it craves that and it wants more and more and more. So you got the unique stimulation of visual, auditory, and feel. And then as we pattern it, it stays. And when it stays, then that new pattern will change your perception of the world that you're in. So let's say it's that frontal lobe. That perception change is that your brain calms down. It's not fatigued as much. The frontal lobe, the executive center, is healthy. And that's when I watch people's autoimmune diseases go into remission, or I watch people's memory get better. Excuse me. Thank you. All right. So we talked about some neurofeedback. Now, this is the next thing I want us to think about. What is determining our future? What if we understand our future is determined less by our intention and more by the pathways we're rehearsing daily? What that means is the habits that we have either are driving us towards health or driving us towards sickness, either driving us towards success or driving us towards failure. And what the research is showing is that, remember how we used to hear like 30 days to change a habit? 30 days is to get it where you're actually firing that new habit 50% of the time. It's actually 60 to change it. So you have to repeat it. And then 60 is when you get to the point, or 2 to 3 months, when it actually becomes unconscious and you just do it naturally. So that's why if you see around the office, I have words that say healing takes time and repetition, because we're actually having to retrain the patterns in your brain. Now, what if we have a attitude or emotion or something that we want to change? What is some grassroots things that we can actually do? Well, I'm going to tell you. What is a simple thing we can do? The first thing we want to do is go, am I aware, recognize the habit that you don't want? So we'll make it easy. If it's my tennis forehand, I don't like that my hand's too far out, so I want to bring it in closer. So I have to recognize that. That's the very first thing. Then you have to redirect. So you have to redirect to what do you want to do? Well, I'm going to take my hand from here and move it to here. Okay. But then we need to repeat it. So we're going to repeat it, and that's the training aspect. The person does something, repeat, repeat. And that's that repetition of doing it over and over and over and over. And what you're actually doing is you're allowing the nerves to fire easier. The more you do it, it gets easier and easier and easier for that pathway to happen. Now I know I'm doing an easy thing like a physical movement, but the same thing happens with emotions. The same thing can happen with physiology. So are we stuck in a chronic inflammatory process? Yes. Decrease the physiological responses, get the brain to work correctly, and you can actually train it to not have that reaction. So we have to understand that the majority, if you don't have a disease by the time you're 3 to 4, it's not a genetic thing. It's a life experience. It's an epigenetic experience thing. It's a how are you turning on your genes or not. Then we're going to repeat it. Now we're going to reinforce it. So if we're going to reinforce it, what are the strongest ways to reinforce it? Do you guys remember what's the biggest one that reinforces it? Do you remember where you were on 9/11? What reinforced that? The emotion, right? How about the day after before? No, I don't remember. So the emotion. So what you want to do, and this is where visualization can come in, you want to visualize the outcome of how you feel. The feeling is what's reinforcing it. So the feeling is to reinforce the neurology so that it'll keep patterning. And then, this is the hardest one. So we're going to recap. We want to recognize what we're doing. We want to redirect, so interpret it and change it. We want to repeat it, build in the wiring. Then we want to reinforce it with emotions or visualization. And then, the hardest of all, you need to sleep on it. Because that's actually when the neural connectivity and the plasticity will hardwire, is when you sleep. And this is why it's really important that if you ever get in an accident, please come see me right away so you don't wire in the new pattern. And I've seen this, because the same way all the things I do to stimulate and help you will help you with the adjustment, the neural laser and so forth. If you have an accident and you go to sleep on it, your body is rewired to that new pattern. And I've seen this very distinctly with car accidents, where we'll have two people, they'll both be in the same accident, and the wife will come in and get care and the husband won't. And the wife will recover in about 2 weeks and the husband will take 9 months to a year. And it's literally because of the sleeping on it that tells them. So for a lot of people, that's the biggest thing that I've ever seen is, please, if you ever have an accident or something big that you want to not get hardwired in, don't fall asleep on it. Try to get care by somebody to break that pattern so that you're adaptive, so you don't hardwire it in. So with that being said, if you have any friends or family members who want to rewire their brains, that's what we do. That's literally what we do. And if you want to do it yourself, remember, recognize it, what you want to change, redirect it. That means interpret a different thing that you want to do. Repeat it. That's rewiring. Reinforce it with emotional strength or visualization, and then sleep on it, and you can actually rewire your brain. Do we have any questions? Sounds pretty awesome, right? So I want to thank you all for being here. And as always, have a blessed night.